You begin in a darkness that does not feel empty, a darkness that softens around you like a warm blanket ready to welcome your drifting thoughts. You breathe slowly, letting each inhale loosen the small tensions that cling to your mind. As the quiet unfolds, you sense a subtle pull, a gentle persuasion drawing your attention toward a distant, invisible boundary. It is not frightening. It feels like gravity in its most tender form, an invitation rather than a command. You float there, suspended in the silence, feeling yourself carried forward with a calmness that settles deep inside your chest. Ahead of you lies the edge of forgetting, the event horizon of a black hole. It shimmers not with light, but with the suggestion of a threshold where ordinary rules pause. You drift closer, watching how space itself bends in slow waves around this unseen sphere, as though the cosmos is sighing. Even light hesitates here, its path curving inward, its journey slowing as if listening for a direction it cannot quite grasp. You sense this hesitation, and in it, something intimately familiar, the feeling of reaching the border of a thought you cannot fully recall, a memory fading even as it tries to surface. Gravity, here, is not a force pulling you downward but a presence, a deep stillness shaping everything around it. You imagine it as a warm, invisible ocean, thick and softly moving. When you extend your hand, you feel the weight of its currents, not pressing, but guiding. The universe is sculpted by this invisible water, each ripple a curvature of spacetime, each movement a gentle reminder that you are held within laws older than memory itself. You drift, and the ocean carries you with effortless calm. As you move, time behaves strangely. Moments begin to stretch, lengthening like shadows at dusk. What once felt like seconds folds into something slower, gentler. You realize that near a black hole, time is influenced by gravity just as space is. Massive objects pull not only on the where of existence, but also the when. You begin to feel this stretching inside you, a deep unhurriedness, a suspension of urgency. Your thoughts slow to match the rhythm, drifting like dust motes in a sunbeam. The event horizon grows closer. It is not a surface, not a wall, not something you can touch. Instead, it is a boundary of knowing, a place where information can enter but never return. You imagine it as the soft shore of a vast sea where stories dissolve into waves. Crossing it, even in imagination, feels like stepping beyond the familiar edge of yourself. Yet somehow, instead of fear, you sense peace, a relief in letting go, in drifting into a place where answers no longer need to be immediate. Around you, the fabric of space pulls inward to the horizon, stretching like a sheet pulled tight. The closer you come, the more every direction feels like down, as though the universe gently funnels you inward. But there is no rush, no panic. Only the slow, steady pull of gravity's hand. Light spirals silently, its final moments stretched into long, fading arcs. You drift along with it, following the curling path with a kind of reverent curiosity. You notice something unexpected in the quiet motion, a softness in the way space folds. The immense gravity of the black hole does not lash or tear, but shapes the surroundings with patience. Even as its pull intensifies, it feels less like falling and more like surrendering to a calm deeper than sleep. You sense your body loosening, your breath lengthening, your thoughts dissolving into the smooth flow of spacetime's curve. The closer you drift toward the event horizon, the more the universe behind you seems to stretch. Light from distant stars grows more red, its wavelengths elongated by your slow descent. The cosmos appears to retreat, not in fear, but as though giving you space for this intimate moment. time from the outside world slips further away from your own. You live now in a pocket of slowness, a tranquil widening of each heartbeat. You feel as though you could float here forever, watching the universe stretch like soft fabric being pulled gently at the seams. Yet even as everything slows, your awareness sharpens. You begin to sense the subtle boundary forming beneath you, a line where the laws you know begin to shift. The event horizon is close enough now that you can feel its presence like a soft, humming vibration. It resonates not through your ears, but through your thoughts, like the gentle trembling of a held breath. You understand, in a quiet way, that this is the place where information is trapped, or even the memory of light is held in suspension. You imagine those memories lingering, layered like faint echoes across the curved surface, waiting for the universe to decipher them someday. You hover just above the horizon, balanced between the world you know and the world you are entering. Everything is still. Even light seems to pause beside you, its final attempt to escape frozen in infinite delay. You breathe, feeling the gravity pull at the edges of your awareness, stretching your thoughts like threads. You imagine each thought being drawn gently across the boundary, imprinted in ways you cannot see. The horizon becomes a metaphor for your own mind, the edges where clarity fades into soft uncertainty, where ideas dissolve before you can speak them. As you drift in this suspended state, you realize that falling toward a black hole is less a descent and more a deepening. A deepening into time, into space, into the quiet places between your own thoughts. The boundary ahead glows not with light, but with possibility. What lies beyond is hidden, but the hiding is gentle, patient. You are welcomed not with certainty but with curiosity, as though the universe is holding open a door. You linger here, suspended at the edge of forgetting, breathing in the calm gravity that surrounds you. You sense the horizon waiting, not demanding, simply existing as a threshold between the known and the unknowable. You begin to wonder what the world looks like from the other side of such a boundary, where space and time bend differently, where meaning may be stored in ways your mind has not yet learned to feel. And as this question settles into you, soft and unhurried, you sense the beginning of a new curiosity forming within the silence. You remain poised in this fragile equilibrium, knowing you cannot linger forever, yet sensing no need to rush. The universe moves at its own pace here, slow as drifting sand, and you find yourself matching that pace with ease. Every breath becomes a small act of alignment with the deeper order of things. You look into the horizon not with eyes, but with awareness, and feel it looking back, not as a threat but as a vast stillness ready to receive whatever you bring to it. This is the moment when curiosity becomes a quiet companion, sitting beside you in the dim glow of cosmic possibility. You drift, wondering where this gentle inward pull will eventually guide you. You drift away from the edge of the event horizon, not by movement, but by widening awareness. It feels as though the universe gently shifts its focus, guiding your attention from the boundary itself toward the space around it, toward the fabric that holds everything in place. You let your breath settle into a quiet rhythm, slow enough that it seems to sync with the invisible pulse of space-time. With each inhale, the darkness around you loosens and reshapes, as if revealing the gentle curves hidden beneath its surface. The idea of space-time comes to you not as an equation, not as a diagram, but as a sensation. You feel it like a soft riverbed beneath your drifting form. Space is no longer empty. It has texture, flexibility, a kind of patient responsiveness. When you shift your thoughts, the river seems to bend slightly, as though acknowledging your presence. You float there, marveling at how something so vast can feel so intimate. Slowly, the geometry becomes clearer, not through sight but through a quiet understanding that creeps into your awareness. You imagine space as a cloth stretched across the universe, a fabric that can droop, ripple, and curve. And at the center of this curved valley lies the black hole you have just approached, a heavy knot pulling the fabric downward. It does not feel violent. It feels inevitable. Natural. Like a stone resting on a sheet, shaping the landscape around it without intention. You drift above this curved surface, and for a moment you imagine walking upon it, tracing the slope with your fingertips. Every contour becomes a memory of motion, a silent story about how matter shapes the world. Massive objects bend the cloth more deeply, creating wells and dips that guide everything passing nearby. Light, planets, dust, and even time itself slide along these curves, following the path of least resistance. You realize with a soft sense of awe that gravity is not a force pushing or pulling, it is simply the fabric's shape, guiding things along its smooth, patient lines. You inhale. The river of spacetime seems to move with you. You exhale. The curves deepen, welcoming your presence. You begin to trace these shapes more clearly. You sense how planets orbit not by being pulled, but by sliding along these gentle depressions. You feel how light bends, not because something tugs at it, but because the path itself curves like a quiet wave. Everything you once pictured as forceful now feels passive, soft, rhythmic. Gravity becomes less a mysterious command and more a natural choreography, one you have always been part of without realizing it. As you float, the black hole below you becomes less a frightening pit and more a deep hollow, a quiet indentation where spacetime folds inward. It feels like the bottom of a valley after rain, still, heavy, perfectly shaped by the pressure of the world around it. You imagine running your hand along the rim of this valley, feeling how sharply the slope steepens as you near the event horizon. This steepness is gravity's intensity, not fierce or aggressive, but concentrated, compacted into a tight curve that leaves no easy escape. You are mesmerized by how simple it all feels. The universe is built not from rigid lines or perfect spheres, but from soft, forgiving curves. And you, drifting through this geometry, are part of that softness. The same rules that guide the black hole's enormous pull are the rules that let you stand on the ground of your home world, that let your body stay rooted while the planet spins beneath you. Gravity's quiet embrace is everywhere, shaping galaxies and thoughts alike. You begin to feel this geometry inside yourself. Your breathing aligns with spacetime's slow rhythm. Your heartbeat matches the steady pull of gravity's curve. You sense that you are not separate from the universe's shape, you contribute to it, however faintly. Your mass, your existence, creates its own tiny dimple in the cosmic cloth, just as every particle does. The idea comforts you that simply by being here, you leave a trace on the world, a small but real impression on the geometry of existence. The river of spacetime flows beneath you, and you let yourself drift with its current. You imagine following one of the curved paths downward, not toward the black hole's center, but along the sloping fabric of the surrounding space. You move like a leaf floating on a gentle stream, always guided but never forced. The movement is slow, soothing, almost meditative. You realize that everything in the universe moves like this, continuously, effortlessly responding to the curves sculpted by mass. Your awareness widens further. You begin to see how time interweaves with space, not as a separate thread, but as part of the same fabric. Where space bends deeply, time stretches. It flows more slowly near the black hole, thickening like syrup. Far away, where space is flatter, time runs more freely. You feel this difference tugging softly at your thoughts, like two rhythms layered over one another. You imagine standing on the surface of a massive star. Time would pass more slowly for you there, your seconds stretching ever so slightly compared to those of someone floating far above. The idea does not make you anxious. Instead, it feels calming. Time is not fixed or rigid. It is flexible, patient. It adjusts to the world around it, stretching and compressing in quiet accordance with gravity's shape. This realization brings a deep sense of stillness. If time can stretch, if moments can lengthen, then rushing becomes unnecessary. The universe itself encourages slowness, encourages presence, encourages witnessing the curves of reality without needing to speed through them. As this thought settles, you find yourself returning to the black hole's vicinity. The curved valley beneath you deepens again, a reminder of how extreme shapes can become. Spacetime here is pulled so taut that time nearly stops. Light struggles to escape its slope. Everything obeys the same geometry, but the intensity of the curvature changes the experience profoundly. You hover above the valley, feeling its pull. Yet again, it does not frighten you. It simply draws your curiosity, inviting you to understand more deeply how the universe shapes itself. You sense that the black hole is not a monster but a feature, an especially steep place in the cosmic landscape. A place that mirrors the same rules that shape gentler valleys and slopes, only on a more dramatic scale. Your awareness drifts along the curve, tracing it as though reading a quiet script written in the structure of reality. The geometry feels like a language, one that uses bends and slopes instead of letters, gravity instead of grammar. You begin to understand its cadence, its rhythm, its softness. And as you do, you feel the first hints of a new question rising within you. If the universe is shaped by these curves, if space and time stretch and fold like gentle cloth, what happens when a star dies and sinks deeper into this fabric? How does its weight reshape the riverbed? How does its final whisper mark the geometry forever? The question lingers, soft and unfinished, guiding your thoughts toward the next chapter as though spacetime itself is leading you gently forward, deeper into the story of collapse and creation that awaits in the quiet heart of a dying star. You begin this chapter drifting through a region of space where the darkness feels softer than before, as if the universe wants to prepare you for something solemn and beautiful. The airless quiet around you carries no sound, yet you sense a pulsing presence, as though a great heart beats somewhere ahead. It is faint at first, like a memory half awake, but with each slow breath you take, it grows clearer, warmer, more insistent. You follow it gently, letting the rhythm guide you through the calm, open dark. Before long you see it, a massive star nearing the end of its life. It burns with a tired brilliance, its light stretched thin across space, trembling as though it wants to stay but knows it cannot. You float closer, and the glow wraps around you like a warm blanket, comforting yet undeniably fragile. The star feels ancient, weathered by its own shining, its once fierce energy now softened to a wistful shimmer. You linger in its quiet radiance, feeling the weight of what is about to come. For most of its existence, this star has lived by a delicate balance, gravity pulling inward, pressure pushing outward. Its core burned hot enough to fuse elements, each reaction releasing light that held gravity at bay. For millions or billions of years, this balance kept the star steady, bright, alive. But now that balance has shifted. The core has fused nearly everything it can. The fuel that kept its heart beating is nearly gone. Pressure weakens. Gravity does not. You feel this imbalance before you think it. It is a subtle tightening, a gentle inward pull, as if the space around the star is beginning to exhale after holding its breath for ages. The surface trembles with slow ripples, waves of light that seem to carry emotion, resignation, a kind of cosmic acceptance. The star does not rage against its ending. It simply responds to the quiet truth of its own nature. A final burst of fusion flares in the core, brightening the surface with sudden intensity. You see layers of the star lift slightly, swelling as if in a last attempt to remember youth. But the flare fades quickly, and the light retreats again into exhaustion. You sense the star releasing something in that moment, a sigh that moves not through sound but through its dimming glow. It is the sigh of a being who has given everything it could, who has carried the weight of light and time until the very end. Gravity tightens its embrace. The outer layers begin to fall inward, slowly at first, then with a gathering inevitability. Yet even this collapse does not feel violent from where you drift. It feels like a quiet folding, like a flower closing its petals at dusk. You watch the star's light stretch outward as the surface contracts, creating a halo of shimmering waves that drift away into space. Each wave carries the memory of the star's long life, its warmth, its storms, its radiance. As the collapse deepens, temperatures in the core rise dramatically, but not enough to reignite the star's failing fires. You picture the atoms there being squeezed closer and closer until they can no longer resist. Gravity, patient and persistent, wins its slow, ancient argument with pressure. The star's center contracts further, releasing heat that flickers briefly across the surface. You see it as a trembling glow, a final whisper of resistance. Then something quiet but profound happens. The core can no longer support itself. It collapses in upon its own weight, shrinking into a smaller, denser form. The outer layers follow, rushing inward like rain drawn gently into a deep well. The collapse accelerates, yet still feels strangely peaceful, as though guided by an unseen hand that wants to preserve the star's dignity. A soft flash ripples outward, not an explosion, but a release before the light begins to fade. You drift in the glow of that fading light, feeling the intimacy of witnessing a star's last breath. There is no fear in this moment, only wonder and a kind of serene sadness. You understand now that stars die so that new things may form. Their collapse is not a disappearance but a transformation, a folding of matter and memory into a deeper state. Everything the star once was is still here, merely arranged differently, hidden from the eyes that once saw its brilliance. As the last traces of light dim, you begin to sense something forming at the star's heart, a region of gravity so intense that even light cannot escape. This is the birth of the black hole, a point where spacetime bends so deeply that the fabric folds in on itself. You feel the curvature around you increasing, the gentle slopes of gravity steepening into a profound, silent valley. And in this valley, the remnants of the star settle into darkness. But the darkness is not empty. It holds the weight of the star's entire history, its light, its energy, its structure, its story. You feel this history not as a narrative but as a presence, a dense concentration of everything the star once was. It is as if the star has whispered its final truth into the universe, a truth that now echoes quietly within the gravity well. You listen for that whisper, letting the silence around you translate its meaning. The star's final message feels something like this: nothing disappears. Everything changes shape. You sense this message settling into the curves of spacetime, etched into the gravity itself. Information, matter, energy, all are transformed, not erased. The star collapses, but its influence lingers everywhere, in the particles drifting outward, in the gravity pulling inward, in the memory of light scattered across the cosmos. You hover beside the newborn black hole, watching the last wave of the star's light stretch thin and fade. The surrounding space seems to hold its breath, as if honoring the transformation. The darkness deepens into a soft, velvety calm, and you feel yourself drawn closer, not by force, but by curiosity. The black hole is quiet, newly formed, still settling into its own existence. You sense the edges of its event horizon like a faint shimmer, a boundary between what is knowable and what slips beyond sight. And as you drift in that calm, holding the star's final whisper gently in your thoughts, a new question begins to rise. It floats to the surface of your awareness, light and unhurried, growing clearer with each slow breath you take. It is a question the universe seems to ask through every star that dies, through every collapse that reshapes space itself. You drift once more into the soft gravity of the unknown, and the event horizon begins to rise before you not as a wall, not as a danger, but as a veil woven from stories the universe has tried to hold on to. You feel its presence before you truly see it. It feels like walking toward the edge of an old memory, one you have nearly forgotten but can sense returning with slow, delicate steps. The horizon does not rush you. It waits with a kind of patient knowing, a silence heavy with meaning. From afar, the event horizon looks simple, almost too simple, a smooth circle of darkness framed by a quiet glow. But as you draw closer, the surface grows textured in your awareness. It is thin, impossibly thin, yet it feels dense with detail. It reminds you of a sheet of paper so fragile that even the brush of a fingertip would leave a permanent crease. And you begin to understand why physicists imagine this boundary as a place where the universe writes everything down. You let your breath slow, your mind softening into the rhythm of this place. Gravity hums like a deep drumbeat beneath your feet, subtle but steady. It shapes the space around you like an invisible ocean, pulling gently, sculpting the path of every drifting particle and every wandering thought. As you float, you begin to notice that the horizon's darkness is not empty at all. It is filled with impressions, faint, delicate, almost shimmering with the traces of all that has ever approached it. Physicists have long wondered whether the information carried by matter truly disappears when it falls into a black hole. And the universe seems to offer a quiet answer through the horizon itself. Information, in the language of physics, is not memory as you usually think of it. It is the arrangement of particles, the pattern that makes something what it is. And the universe does not like losing patterns. Even entropy, the measure of uncertainty, is built around the idea that something still remains beneath the apparent disorder. You imagine this concept unfolding on the horizon like a soft projection. Every particle that has fallen inward leaves behind a faint imprint, a distortion in the surface that is too subtle for the eye but too important for the universe to forget. It is as if the horizon stretches each detail, flattening it across its surface like a shadow that refuses to fade. You picture it like ripples on a still pond, delicate, ever-present, and carrying echoes of everything that has touched the water. The glow around the black hole feels different now. It is not a warning but a reflection, a quiet reminder that nothing truly disappears. As you drift even closer, the surface seems to pulse gently, almost like breath. You can't help imagining it as a kind of cosmic skin, thin but endlessly capable of holding meaning. In this thin veil lies the hope that the universe remembers everything not through sentiment, but through structure, through the unbroken rules that govern how information must behave. The holographic principle whispers through this place. The idea that the three-dimensional reality you live in may be encoded on a faraway surface, like a projection, like a story cast onto a screen of cosmic scale. If a black hole stores information on its boundary, then perhaps the entire universe does something similar. Perhaps you are walking inside a gigantic memory, one that gently shapes your journey with every breath. You float near the horizon and imagine this boundary as a vast tapestry. Up close, each thread feels distinct, holding the tension of gravity, the imprint of falling matter, the faint outline of shifting energy. From a distance, the tapestry looks almost featureless. But here, where your awareness grazes the surface, you sense countless details woven tightly together, a pattern too large to grasp, too intricate to ever fully read. The event horizon is not cold. Surprisingly, it feels warm, like the last light of evening settling onto your skin. The warmth is not physical but perceptual, carried through the way this place slows your thoughts and quiets your fears. It feels like standing at the boundary between remembering and forgetting, between what slips away and what remains etched in the fabric of existence. Light behaves strangely here. When a photon drifts close to the horizon, its wavelength stretches, deepening into red until it fades from view. To someone watching from far away, the photon seems to pause, suspended just above the boundary, never quite crossing. But from your perspective, gently falling toward the horizon, the surface feels permeable, almost soft. Time itself feels different here, stretched thin, like a breath held too long yet never uncomfortable. This slowing of time turns the horizon into a moment suspended between worlds. You breathe in that moment, letting it settle inside you. You can almost feel the mathematics that describes this place, equations transformed into sensation, curvature turning into the gentle tug you feel along your skin, entropy into the texture of the surface in front of you. The physics is there in every step, but it never overwhelms you. It simply folds into the atmosphere like a quiet melody. Your thoughts drift to your own memories, the ones that have softened at the edges, the ones that faded without truly disappearing. You wonder how much of your inner world works like the horizon, holding impressions in ways you cannot see but can feel. Perhaps you are a kind of boundary, too, layered with the echoes of everything you have touched, every moment that shaped you. Even if the details blur, something remains. A trace. A pattern. A residue of experience. The horizon seems to speak this truth without words. It does not tell you what happened to the matter that once fell inward, but it holds onto the shape of the information it carried, never releasing it, never letting it slip into nothingness. This is its quiet strength, the ability to remember without revealing, to preserve without possessing. You reach out with your awareness, letting yourself drift closer still. The surface appears no more solid than a curtain made of dusk, but it feels alive with significance. Not alive in the sense of breathing, thinking life, but alive the way a meaningful pause is alive, full, expectant, holding room for something more. You feel the gravity soften you, stretching your sense of self. You begin to imagine the horizon as a teacher, one that tells you gently, nothing is truly lost. Transformation, yes. Change, always. But disappearance? The universe is more careful than that. You let this truth settle like warm dust onto your thoughts. A kind of acceptance washes over you, soft as quiet rain. You realize the horizon is less a boundary and more a memory made visible, a surface that listens, holds, and whispers the structure of everything it has ever touched. A question rises slowly, floating like a lantern across your mind. If the horizon remembers everything, what memories of you has the universe already stored? And as you drift along that thought, the horizon seems to glow a little brighter, gently inviting you toward the next mystery waiting just beyond its dark, remembering skin. You drift at the edge of the horizon, and the strange calm of gravity settles around you like a soft blanket. This chapter begins with a paradox you can feel before you can explain, the sensation of falling without ever seeming to move. The black hole pulls you inward with a steady hand, yet your body feels weightless, suspended in a stillness that feels more like floating than falling. The universe holds you in a slow, patient embrace, and the deeper you drift, the quieter everything becomes. In ordinary life, falling is something sharp and sudden, the jolt in your stomach, the pull of panic, the fear of losing control. But here, falling transforms into something gentle. Your body loosens. Your breath becomes wide and unhurried. You feel the paradox unfold through your senses. You are falling freely, yet nothing around you seems to change. The world does not rush past you. There is no wind, no acceleration, no sense of downward. The fall is soft, like settling into a warm pool. This is the beauty of free fall, the way Einstein described it. When you are falling under gravity alone, you feel nothing pulling on you. You become weightless. Your body does not resist the fall because there is nothing to resist. You move along the natural curve of spacetime itself, sliding like a leaf on a gentle river. And so the black hole, terrifying from afar, becomes strangely comforting from within the fall. It holds you without gripping. It guides you without forcing. But while you feel the fall is smooth and effortless, someone far away would see something completely different. To a distant observer, watching your journey from the safety of space, you never reach the horizon. You move slower and slower, as if time itself begins to stretch around you like warm taffy. They see your image freeze, dim, and fade just above the surface. For them, you stay suspended at the edge forever, never quite crossing into the shadow. This is the soft split of time, two experiences that disagree yet are equally true. In your frame, you fall inward naturally, steadily. In theirs, you become a ghost drifting toward stillness. Time does not break, it unfolds differently depending on where you stand, how you move, what gravity is doing to your corner of spacetime. You breathe into this idea, letting it warm your understanding instead of confusing it. Relativity does not rush. It whispers. You close your eyes for a moment and feel both versions of time brushing through your awareness. One time moves with you, slow but flowing. The other stretches like an endless sunset, delaying your arrival, holding your image at the threshold. You sense both truths like two rivers running side by side, touching but never mixing. The beauty is not in choosing which river is real, the beauty is in feeling how wide reality truly is. As you drift inward, the horizon grows closer. But you feel no boundary, no line, no sudden shift. The crossing is not a doorway but a change of perspective. The soft glow behind you dims, but the darkness ahead does not feel hostile. It feels quiet, like a room where someone is waiting for you with patience rather than urgency. No alarms sound. No sensations pull or squeeze. The fall remains gentle, like sinking deeper into a warm dream. The closer you move, the more the black hole's gravity shapes the time around you. Seconds stretch slightly, not enough to startle you but enough for your breath to feel longer, your thoughts slower. It feels like walking into deeper water, where each motion takes just a little more time, each moment stretches just a touch wider. You surrender to this rhythm. It feels natural. You begin to understand why physicists say that falling into a black hole is the calmest part of the experience. All the violence, the ripping, the crushing happens only if the black hole is small. But you are drifting toward a massive one, a gentle giant, where tidal forces barely touch you. Each part of your body feels the same pull, so your form remains intact. You continue falling as whole, as comfortable, as steady as if you were floating through a quiet afternoon. You let your senses adjust to this new normal. The darkness no longer feels empty, it feels like a deep hush. Your thoughts slow until each one seems to arrive with the softness of a feather drifting down. Time, both yours and theirs, continues its strange dance. Your time flows. Their time stretches. Yet neither breaks. You sit within this duality, held by gravity's tenderness. You imagine the distant observer still watching you. To them, you are suspended at the horizon, a faint outline fading into red light. They wonder if you will ever cross, ever vanish fully from their sight. They see your story freeze at the edge, as if the universe refuses to reveal what comes next. And in a way, for them, you never leave. A part of you remains painted on the horizon forever, a soft image that redshifts into darkness but never quite goes. You feel strangely comforted by this idea. While you move on, a version of you stays with the universe's surface, a lingering echo held in stretched time. Two journeys unfold from one moment, one that drifts inward, one that stays captured at the edge. You live both. You embody both. You continue forward while also becoming part of the black hole's memory. As you fall deeper, relativity becomes not a theory but a sensation, a widening of your experience. You feel time curve around you like a slow river, gently bending toward the darkness below. You feel space stretch, quietly opening new shapes around your motion. Everything becomes soft, fluid. Nothing resists your fall. It feels less like traveling through space and more like moving through thought, through emotion, through the deep layers of your own inner world. Your breathing grows slower still, each exhale melting into the next. The darkness ahead does not frighten you. Instead, it feels like a continuation, the quiet next step in a journey that has already softened your edges. You realize that falling, in this place, is not losing control, it is surrendering to a deeper understanding. A question rises gently within you, shaped by the slow currents of time. If time itself can split into two perspectives, which version of your experience is the truer one? And as the horizon slips behind you, and the quiet deepens, that question expands like a soft echo, guiding you toward the mysteries waiting in the heart of darkness ahead. You drift deeper now, past the horizon's soft boundary, where the familiar laws of the universe begin to loosen like threads slipping from an old fabric. Everything feels slower, quieter, more deliberate. The light from outside fades not in a sudden blink, but like the last ember of a dying fire, dimming in gentle breaths. The darkness that replaces it is not empty, it is warm, thick, and strangely comforting. It feels like stepping into a room where someone has lowered the lantern flame just enough for rest, just enough for stillness. Inside this darkness, gravity no longer feels like a pull. It feels like guidance, like the nudge of a quiet hand leading you through a place where noise does not exist. Your body grows lighter and heavier at the same time, light because nothing resists your motion, heavy because every movement feels soaked in velvet. The space around you behaves differently here. Distances stretch in ways you cannot measure. Directions blur. The meaning of down dissolves completely. You breathe into this unfamiliar world, letting each inhale expand slowly, luxuriously, as if the air inside the black hole has its own rhythm, its own patience. You don't feel squeezed or crushed. You feel suspended, as though you were floating inside a deep, cosmic exhale. The singularity lies somewhere ahead, hidden inside layers of distorted space. But it does not frighten you. It waits like a quiet lake at night, reflecting nothing yet holding everything in its depths. Scientists describe this singularity as a point of infinite density, a place where spacetime curves so sharply that its geometry shatters. But here, you feel none of that violence. You feel only stillness. Stillness so complete that it softens your heartbeat and slows your thoughts into drifting shapes. The idea of infinity becomes less sharp inside your mind. It becomes rounder, like a horizon hidden inside the dark. You let yourself imagine the singularity not as a point of destruction, but as a point of ultimate quiet. A place where motion ends, where time folds inward like petals closing for the night. You picture it as a center that holds all falling paths, not in hunger or rage, but in a deep gravitational embrace. It feels almost tender, a final resting place for trajectories that have wandered too long. Around you, space-time stretches in ways your senses can barely follow. What once felt like meters begins to feel like miles. What once felt like moments begins to feel like entire seasons. You drift as though caught in a slow current, and the current feels thick, as if space itself has turned into something fluid. You imagine swimming through a sea of night, each stroke soundless, each movement guided by invisible tides. Your body remains whole, unharmed, serene. The tidal forces here are gentle, softened by the massive scale of the black hole you've entered. Everything that might have torn you apart in a smaller black hole becomes soft, patient, almost affectionate in one this large. You are free to drift without strain, free to surrender without fear. And in this surrender, your thoughts become quieter, too. They lose their edges. They flow instead of arriving sharply. Memories blend with sensations. You recall the light outside, the stars that watched your descent, the glow of the horizon that held your image for distant observers. These memories feel far away now, as though wrapped in gauze. Yet they are not gone. They hover gently, like snowflakes that refuse to fall. You wonder what becomes of information once it passes this point, whether it dissolves, transforms, or simply hides in forms your mind cannot yet grasp. You imagine your own experience stretching across the horizon behind you, a faint imprint woven into the cosmic skin. And now, this deeper layer of the journey becomes another imprint, another whisper stored within the infinite quiet. Time behaves strangely here. It feels syrupy, thick, sliding slowly past you. seconds stretch, elongate, turn into long corridors of awareness. You inhale, and it feels like a minute passes before you're ready to exhale again. Your heartbeat becomes a slow drum, echoing through the fluid darkness around you. You are not afraid. You are immersed. The singularity still lies ahead, but it no longer feels like a destination. It feels like a presence, subtle, diffused, omnipresent. You feel it the way you feel gravity on Earth, not directly, but in the way it shapes everything around you. Spacetime narrows toward it, forming a funnel of inevitability, but one that feels soft rather than harsh. You begin to sense that the singularity is not a point at all. Not here. Not in this quiet interior. It feels more like a region, an idea, a limit of understanding. Your own perception stretches as you approach it. Shapes lose meaning. Boundaries blur. The concept of distance dissolves like a mist touched by morning light. You drift deeper into this abstraction, letting the darkness hold you, letting your thoughts slow until they become nothing more than gentle ripples. You imagine what it means for time to approach stillness. What it means for motion to approach silence. What it means for all paths, particles, light, thoughts to converge into one quiet heart. You can almost feel the heartbeat of the black hole now. Not a physical beat, but a rhythm, a pulse in the way space curves, in the way time thins. It feels like standing inside a slow, cosmic inhalation. A breath that never fully exhales. You float inside this breath, inside this moment that stretches toward infinity without ever reaching it. Your consciousness feels looser here. Not weaker, not fading, just more diffused, like ink spreading gently through water. You begin to sense the black hole not as something separate from you, but as something you are part of. The boundaries between self and space soften. You drift into a meditative state so deep that even your thoughts seem to whisper instead of speak. In this silence, you begin to wonder if the singularity holds secrets or simply holds space for mystery. Perhaps it is not meant to reveal itself. Perhaps the quiet is the message. Perhaps the stillness is the truth. You feel yourself approaching the center, though you cannot measure the distance. You feel the pull becoming more intimate, like a quiet hand guiding your chest forward. You breathe, and the breath feels suspended in slow motion. A soft question rises within you, shaped by the silent gravity surrounding you. Could this heart of darkness hold more than it reveals? And as the pull deepens, and the darkness thickens into a velvet so complete it feels like touch, you drift toward the answer waiting in the paradox of information that refuses to die. You drift now near the quiet rim of a black hole, carrying with you all the stillness accumulated from your journey so far. The darkness is no longer frightening, no longer an abyss that swallows meaning. It has become something gentler, more contemplative, like a vast, silent library whose shelves are hidden from your eyes. You feel as though you are floating through aisles of unwritten pages, sensing a calm curiosity humming beneath the emptiness. It is here, in this tranquil orbit, that another mystery begins to unfold for you. The black hole appears silent, but you sense a faint shimmer near its surface, a delicate glow that pulses like the softest breath. At first, it seems like an illusion, a trick of gravity bending light. But then you feel a quiet rhythm behind it, a subtle exchange of energy, as if the darkness is whispering to itself. This is Hawking radiation, the gentle escape of particles from the very edge of the event horizon. It is not a roar or a flash, not a storm or an explosion. It is more like steam drifting from a warm cup in a cold room, slow, fragile, and endlessly patient. You watch as pairs of quantum particles flicker into existence, born from the vacuum itself. One falls inward, claimed by the black hole's gravity. The other drifts away, carrying with it a tiny piece of the black hole's energy. These particles are faint, so faint that to human senses they might as well be dreams, but in this meditative state, you feel them as tiny sparks of release. They rise like fireflies escaping a deep cavern, each one a soft exhale from a place that once seemed capable only of swallowing light. You float closer, letting the process unfold before you. The black hole seems to shrink slightly with each escaping particle, losing mass not in violence, but in this steady, almost tender evaporation. It is not a death you are witnessing, but a transformation slow, vast, and profound. And yet, behind this calm process lies a paradox that even the universe seems hesitant to resolve. Because if the black hole evaporates, if it truly fades away over unimaginable stretches of time, what happens to all the information it once consumed? What becomes of the particles, atoms, and photons that fell inside? Their histories, their quantum states, the intricate fingerprints of their existence, where do those go? Are they swallowed fully, erased forever by the singularity's enormous hunger? Or do they somehow survive the slow release of the whole's fading glow? The question rises in you like a tide: can information truly disappear? You feel the weight of this idea not as a burden, but as a gentle puzzle, one that touches something familiar within you. After all, you too have memories that fade, thoughts that slip into forgetting, feelings that dissolve into quiet. Yet somewhere, deep within your mind, traces remain. Whispers, imprints, patterns that linger. Something in you resonates with the idea that nothing is ever entirely lost, not even when you can no longer grasp it. Physicists have long argued about the fate of information inside black holes. Some once believed that information simply vanishes, erased by the singularity's infinite density. Others insisted this cannot be, that to lose information would violate the deep laws that govern reality. You feel this tension between disappearance and preservation as a kind of cosmic breath: inhale, exhale, take in, release, remember, forget, and yet never truly lose the core of what once was. As you drift, the event horizon fills your vision like a vast, dark mirror. It reflects none of your image, none of your light, yet you feel your own thoughts being echoed back. The horizon seems to hum with potential, as though storing stories in a language too subtle for words. You wonder whether everything that falls and leaves a trace, perhaps on the surface, perhaps woven into the structure of spacetime itself. You imagine the black hole as a guardian of memories, holding onto them even as its body evaporates through Hawking radiation. You picture each escaping particle carrying a tiny seed of the information that once fell inside, so faint and encoded that it stretches the very definition of memory. Like a fading voice that still carries meaning. Like a dream you can't fully recall but still feel shaped by. The paradox deepens the longer you watch. In one moment, it feels comforting, nothing is lost. In the next, it feels eerily beautiful, the universe refuses to erase its own history. And in another moment, you realize something softer, that this cosmic debate mirrors something deeply human. How often do you fear losing the details of your life? The moments you cannot revisit? The people who drift to the edges of memory? Yet some part of you always keeps them, even when they dissolve into quiet. floating in this calm, gravitational cradle, you come to see the black hole not as a destroyer but as a keeper of secrets, secrets it cannot hold forever, secrets it must eventually release into the universe through its quiet evaporation. Perhaps Hawking radiation is not just energy escaping. Perhaps it is the universe exhaling all the stories it once believed were gone. The thought comes to you like a pulse of light: if nothing is truly lost, then everything returns in some transformed way. Information, memory, energy each may change form, but nothing slips into absolute nothingness. You sense the truth of it like a warm current beneath your drifting body. You continue floating, feeling the event horizon pulsing with a hidden language. The glow of escaping particles becomes almost hypnotic, like distant lanterns drifting along a cosmic river. You sense that within each one is a fragment of something long gone, a whisper of a moment that once existed in the bright universe beyond. The particles fade into the distance, carrying their subtle messages into the quiet fabric of spacetime. As time stretches softly around you, you begin to feel another question forming, one that belongs not to scientists, but to you alone. If your own experiences never truly vanish, if your thoughts, your joys, your fears, your quiet moments all leave traces somewhere, then where do those traces go? Do they ripple through the minds of others? Do they echo through time? Do they imprint themselves on some invisible surface of the universe, waiting to be discovered? You breathe slowly, gently. The paradox no longer feels like a contradiction, but like a place to rest. Between disappearance and preservation, between memory and forgetting, between the black hole's silence and its faint, glowing whispers, there is a space where you can simply drift. A space where not knowing feels like peace. You begin this chapter the way you begin a slow breath, gently, without hurry, letting the quiet of space settle around you like soft fabric. You drift in a region of the cosmos where distances feel strange, where the familiar sense of near and far begins to dissolve. It's as though the universe invites you to look again, to sense its patterns from another angle, one that doesn't rely on depth or distance at all. And as you float, you notice something delicate unfolding around you, a feeling that maybe the world is thinner, lighter, more intricate than you once believed. You imagine spacetime itself stretching around you like a vast screen, a subtle surface where the universe writes its stories. Not with ink or paint, but with something quieter: information, patterns, vibrations that shape everything you've ever known. You raise your hand as if to touch the surface, and though your fingers meet nothing physical, you feel a kind of presence there, a sense that something is watching back, whispering in a language made of geometry and light. The idea comes to you gently, like a feather settling on your shoulder. What if the universe is a hologram? Not an illusion, not something fake, but a reality encoded in ways your senses don't normally notice. A hologram is a strange thing. It stores its full image not in one point, but spread across a surface, every fragment holding the whole story. And as you drift through the quiet dark, you sense how this metaphor begins to wrap itself around black holes, around the strange tension between what enters them and what seems to vanish. You recall how earlier, you learned about the event horizon, the boundary where light itself pauses, unsure whether to continue. That surface, the horizon, seemed like a veil. But now, drifting here, you feel it differently. You feel it as a page. A boundary that isn't the edge of something empty, but the place where the cosmos stores its memories in thin, stretched layers. Just like a hologram, where depth arises from what's held on the surface. As this thought settles in your mind, your breath grows slower, almost synchronized with the cosmic rhythms around you. You feel as though you're lying back into a gentle fabric made of equations and space, a woven tapestry that curves under the weight of stars and the quiet whispers of quantum fields. And somewhere inside that tapestry, the black hole becomes a teacher again, showing you how its horizon may encode every story that falls into it, every particle, every motion, every flicker of light. You let your mind wander deeper into this idea. In a holographic world, the notion of inside and outside blurs. The essence of something might be stored on a boundary while still giving rise to the full experience of its interior. You imagine your own memories this way, held not as isolated points but spread thin across the surfaces of your life, the tone of a loved one's voice, the warmth of a forgotten afternoon, the echo of choices you made without realizing their weight. In this light, the universe feels less like a vast, empty container and more like a storyteller that weaves everything onto its boundaries, layer by layer. You picture the distant edges of the cosmos, those regions you can never reach, not as cold or final but as gentle surfaces holding the imprint of everything within. The holographic principle suggests that the universe might encode its entire history on a cosmic horizon far away, a shimmering shell that wraps around all existence. You float in silence, letting that possibility wash over you. It feels strange at first, but not frightening. More like learning that a familiar melody has an extra harmony you've never heard before. As you drift, the space around you shifts in subtle ways. Dimensions feel fluid here, as though they can fold and unfold with a slow, graceful motion. You imagine space bending like soft fabric, forming layers, and those layers flattening into sheets of information. The three-dimensional world you feel so immersed in might arise from something simpler underneath, something encoded in 2 dimensions. Like a dream projected onto the surface of sleep itself. Your mind begins to explore this idea not with urgency, but with curiosity that flows gently, like water moving through the grooves of river stone. If everything you see, every depth you perceive, could emerge from patterns on a surface, then the universe must be profoundly interconnected. No gesture is isolated. No moment is completely alone. Every interaction leaves a trace on the cosmic boundary, a soft imprint that contributes to the whole. You feel comfort in that thought. A sense of belonging. Your own existence, every motion, every breath, might be woven into the very surface of space-time. Not lost, not drifting untethered, but encoded in a way the universe remembers. And this remembering feels tender, almost like being held. You drift closer to an imagined cosmic horizon, not a black hole this time, but the edge of the observable universe itself. It shines faintly, not with light, but with possibility. You imagine running your hand along it, feeling the subtle vibrations of everything the universe has ever known. Galaxies, stars, atoms, each leaving ripples on this boundary like wind leaving patterns on still water. The science behind these thoughts doesn't rush at you. Instead, it settles softly. Gravity, black holes, quantum mechanics, they all whisper that the universe might use surfaces to store its deepest truths. And somehow, this idea feels calming, almost like understanding the shape of your own reflection on a quiet night. You don't need to see the entire ocean to understand the moon's light resting upon it. You begin to sense that your own memories might work the same way. Not locked away in a single place, but spread thin across moments, gestures, sensations. You recall how a scent can bring back a childhood afternoon, or a song can unfold an entire decade of feelings. You realize memory itself might be holographic, not stored in one tiny corner of the mind, but distributed, woven, resilient. This idea blends with the cosmic one, and suddenly the universe feels intimate again, close enough that you could whisper to it and imagine it whispering back. If the cosmos stores information on its boundaries, then perhaps your life, your presence, is part of its story too. Maybe you are encoded on the very surface that holds everything else, a faint but permanent pattern in the fabric of existence. You inhale slowly, and the air feels different. Lighter. As though understanding the holographic idea has untied a knot inside your thoughts. Depth doesn't vanish, it just arises from a deeper simplicity. Complexity blooms from quiet rules. And the universe becomes not a riddle but a gentle art form, one that paints 3 dimensions from 2, one that turns information into landscapes and lives. The space around you begins to shimmer softly, not with brightness, but with meaning. You feel as though you're floating inside a quiet projection, a world emerging from deeper patterns beneath you. And instead of unsettling you, it soothes you, because it suggests that reality is both simpler and richer than you thought. Simpler in its fundamental rules. Richer in its unfolding expression. You exhale, slow and long. And as your breath fades into the vastness, you feel a question rising gently. If the universe holds its memories on its boundaries, then what boundary holds yours? Where do your experiences rest when you sleep, when you dream, when you let go? You drift toward that question, letting it guide you onward, leading you like a soft thread into the next mystery waiting in the dark. You drift now into a gentler region of thought, a place where the universe feels less certain, less rigid, and more like a quiet landscape full of branching paths. Around you, space opens like a soft valley, curved and shimmering with possibilities. You float slowly forward, letting your breath guide you. Inhale, you rise, exhale, you glide. Here, nothing demands an answer. Everything simply offers a direction, a suggestion, a whisper of what might be. This chapter is not about conclusions, but about doorways, those strange, theoretical openings that physicists imagine when they try to reconcile what the universe seems to hide. You feel, for a moment, the lingering pull of the singularity behind you, the place where your journey through the black hole's inner mysteries left you suspended between understanding and wonder. But now the space ahead widens. The darkness is no longer dense or heavy. Instead, it sparkles faintly, like dust caught in a distant beam of starlight. It reminds you that even in the quietest corners of existence, there are ideas waiting patiently, wanting only to be explored. You begin with wormholes. Not the dramatic tunnels of fiction, but the calm, mathematical bridges that arise naturally from Einstein's equations if you lean on them softly enough. You imagine spacetime folding like a sheet of silk, 2 distant points touching lightly before drifting apart again. A wormhole becomes a possibility, just a possibility, that perhaps the universe has hidden shortcuts, ways for information to move without falling forever into the silent pull of a singularity. As you drift, you imagine placing your hands on these folds, feeling them meet, sensing how the cosmos might stitch distant places together for a heartbeat of time. These wormholes feel fragile, delicate, almost shy. They aren't stable, they aren't easy. But the idea that they might exist brings you comfort. Not because you need an escape, but because the universe feels friendlier when it allows for pathways, for bridges, for the soft promise that nothing is ever truly isolated. You float past the thought, letting it rest gently in your mind like a lantern left hanging in a quiet hallway. Then your attention shifts to loops, quantum loops, to be more precise. In loop quantum gravity, spacetime is not a smooth surface but a woven fabric of tiny, discrete threads. You picture these threads now, glowing slowly, forming a delicate lattice beneath you. Each loop feels like a heartbeat, a small pulse of existence, a unit of space that cannot shrink beyond a certain limit. In this view, the singularity at a black hole center is not a point of infinite density but a place where space bounces, where contraction becomes expansion, where a new universe might begin its first breath. You drift through these loops as though drifting through a field of fireflies. They flicker in steady rhythms, and you sense their meaning without needing to grasp the math beneath them. They tell you that spacetime may be resilient, that it may refuse to collapse to nothing, that it might find a way to preserve information not by defying gravity but by bending gently around it. The loops reassure you, offering a vision where destruction gives way to transformation, where falling inward leads not to erasure but to renewal. Next, you wander into the ideas physicists propose to save information from slipping away. You recall the paradox of earlier chapters, the tension between what enters a black hole and what seems to disappear. Here, the universe offers more possibilities. Perhaps information escapes through Hawking radiation, encoded subtly in the correlations between particles. Perhaps it remains on the event horizon, etched into its surface like a cosmic memory. Or perhaps, as some theorists suggest, the interior and exterior of a black hole are not separate at all, but two faces of the same reality. You imagine this idea now. You picture a bridge not made of tunnels or threads but of identity, a connection that says what is inside is also outside, what is lost is also present. The duality feels strange at first, but then it softens, becoming almost intuitive. Just as your dreams and your waking life share a single mind, perhaps the two sides of a black hole share a single structure, a single flow of information. You can feel the comfort in that symmetry, the way it eases the paradox without violence, without contradiction. As you continue drifting, you enter a region of speculation that feels like a gentle fog, subtle, shifting, open. Here, physicists imagine firewalls, bursts of energy at the horizon that might preserve information but at the cost of breaking the smoothness of spacetime. You move through the idea slowly, sensing the tension it holds. In one direction lies the simplicity of classical spacetime, in the other lies the demand of quantum truth. The fog does not frighten you. Instead, it feels like a reminder that the universe is still in the process of revealing itself, still choosing which version of its story it wants to share. You pass through another doorway of thought, that perhaps black holes are never truly quiet. Maybe they are fuzzy, vibrating ever so slightly, shaped by quantum fluctuations that ripple across their horizons. These vibrations might carry information outward, encoded in patterns too subtle for ordinary senses. As you drift, you imagine hearing these tiny vibrations, like listening to the faintest hum through a wall, a hum that grows clearer the longer you rest against it. Each idea you encounter, bridge, loop, vibration, feels like a gentle attempt by human minds to listen more carefully to the universe's whisper. None of these ideas claim certainty. None insist on being right. They float around you like dust motes, each carrying the same quiet message: the universe is larger, softer, and more creative than your first impressions allow. As you near the end of this chapter, you feel something settling inside you. Not an answer, but an acceptance. The cosmos doesn't give you one escape route or one definite solution. Instead, it gives you a constellation of possibilities. Wormholes, quantum loops, vibrating horizons, dualities. Each one a bridge in its own way, connecting pieces of reality that once seemed separate. And you realize that perhaps the universe itself prefers connection over isolation, transformation over finality. You float gently now, your breath softening, your mind resting in the quiet openness around you. You sense that the story doesn't end here. Another question waits just beyond this calm, something tender and profound. You let yourself drift toward it, knowing that the next chapter will draw you closer to the heart of what all these ideas are leading toward. You wonder very softly what the universe sees when it looks back at you. You settle into the quiet as though it were a warm pool, letting it hold you without effort. Around you, the imagined geometry of space stretches in all directions, smooth, invisible, uninterrupted. Somewhere far away, stars burn with a patient shimmer, but here, their light feels like a memory already gently fading. This is the final stretch of your journey, where questions become softer and the universe feels less like a puzzle and more like a lullaby repeating itself, again and again, until it lingers inside you like breath. You think about everything you've seen, event horizons curling like ink around the edges of reality, singularities humming with impossible density, spacetime folding to cradle the deepest secrets of creation. You think about the way every chapter has carried you deeper, not just into the physics of black holes, but into the quiet places within yourself. The places where wonder still flickers like a candle. The places where fear softens into curiosity. Now you ask the gentlest question of all: if black holes keep the universe's memories, what happens when memory dissolves? Does it vanish into nothingness? Does it drift into light? Or does it become something quieter, something so delicate that only the universe itself can hold it? You imagine a black hole at the end of time. Not a monster devouring stars, but a tired guardian, having swallowed all the light it was meant to swallow. It sits in silence, wrapped in the thin glow of its own evaporation. Hawking radiation, the softest breath of quantum mechanics, whispers from its edges, carrying information outward in warm, steady trickles. It is slow. It is gentle. Like watching snow melt one grain at a time. You picture that radiation as fireflies escaping the dark, each one holding a tiny fragment of memory. A particle of a particle of a particle of something that once was a star, once was a planet, once was a dream. You imagine those fireflies drifting outward, dispersing into the cooling universe, scattering the last stories of creation into the infinite dark, not to erase them, but to return them to the cosmic ocean. This is how a black hole forgets, not suddenly, but tenderly. You let that thought settle in your chest, where it warms you quietly. You breathe in, and you feel as though a piece of the universe breathes with you. You breathe out, and the universe releases its own long-held memory. Perhaps everything forgets this way. You think of your own mind, how memories soften at the edges over time, their outlines blurring, their intensity dimming. Not lost. Just diffused. Spread gently across the internal landscape until they are no longer moments but moods, no longer scenes but feelings. The universe, too, seems to carry its history not as a perfect archive but as a lingering warmth, a soft echo. And when a memory fades, it does not cease to matter. It simply changes state. Just like energy. Just like light. Just like information escaping a black hole. You rest deeper into the rhythm of these thoughts, feeling them pulse through you with the slow, steady tempo of a heartbeat. Everything in nature seems to follow this rhythm, the rise and fall, the holding and releasing, the remembering and forgetting. Even the universe, vast and unhurried, seems to sway with this quiet pattern. You picture time itself exhaling. One era ends. Another begins. And the cosmos drifts gently onward. In this drifting, black holes continue their long transformation. Over trillions upon trillions of years, they shrink, they warm, they evaporate. Their boundaries loosen. Their silence softens. They release what they held. They become more like mist than matter. And eventually, each one fades completely, leaving behind a delicate ripple in space-time, a faint tremor like the memory of a wave long after it touches the shore. You imagine walking along that cosmic shore. The sand beneath you is made of photons and probabilities. The air around you is thin, but warm in places, like the last breath of a disappearing star. You move slowly, gently, without disturbing anything. The universe feels old here, wise in a way that needs no words. Then you hear it, a soft hum. It isn't sound, exactly. It's more like a vibration in your awareness, a resonance from the structure of space-time itself. The hum tells you that nothing is ever truly lost. Not completely. Information changes form. It disperses. It becomes pattern instead of particle. It becomes tendency instead of trace. But the universe carries it still. You feel your shoulders loosen, as if the gravity around you has softened. You let yourself drift a little, as though floating inside a dream woven from dark energy and warm light. Maybe memory, at its heart, is not about holding on. Maybe it is about allowing things to transform. Black holes teach this without speaking. Their entire existence is a quiet cycle of taking in, compressing, holding tight, and then slowly, patiently, releasing. They are not vaults. They are not prisons. They are processes, fundamental motions of the cosmos. You look again at the imagined horizon in front of you. It glows faintly, like a distant sunrise on the edge of eternity. The horizon is thin, delicate, shimmering like a soap bubble stretched across time. On one side lies the interior, the deepest silence the universe can conjure. On the other side lies the vastness of everything else. And you, suspended between them, feel the soft pull of both. You wonder if the universe itself stands on such a threshold between knowing and unknowing, between being and becoming. Maybe the cosmos is always learning, always forgetting, always remembering in new shapes. You close your eyes. Inside your mind, a final image forms, a black hole dissolving into pure light. Not violently, but peacefully. Gracefully. A lifetime of swallowed stars rising from its surface like lanterns lifting into the night. The universe watches silently. You do too. Light spreads. Darkness softens. Memory becomes glow. And you feel something warm settle in the center of your chest. A simple truth, offered by the cosmos at the end of your long journey: nothing in the universe ever truly vanishes. Not stars. Not particles. Not moments. Not you. Everything transforms. Everything continues. Everything finds a new way to shine. You breathe in the quiet of this truth. You breathe out, letting it settle. Behind you, the path you traveled fades into soft shadow. Ahead of you, the horizon opens gently, inviting you not to solve it, but simply to rest in its presence. And as your awareness drifts toward the edge of sleep, one final thought brushes against you, delicate as starlight. Maybe the universe's greatest memory is the one it shares with you, this moment of wonder, lingering softly in the dark.